Welcome to the Navigating Disruption podcast. I'm your host, Shaquille Barmel. I'm the CEO of Ocean Blue Strategic and partner with the Summit Group. I'm a coach, consultant, and speaker, and I help leaders, entrepreneurs, and sales professionals make an impact through improved performance. In this podcast, I share insights and interviews with interesting leaders to define practical lessons that you can use to make an impact in the face of uncertainty. This is a short but very special episode to me. I started this podcast as an experiment in August, and I am so grateful to have had 2,000 downloads. A little bit surprised, actually. I've had such a great time connecting with new people and people that I haven't talked to in years to discuss leadership and draw lessons on how to navigate this time and the days to come. And in this final episode of the year, I wanted to share with you the top 5 downloaded episodes and the key insights and favorite elements of the conversations that I've had in these episodes. So I'm going to do a countdown episode, and I hope you enjoy it. The 5th most downloaded episode was my conversation with Tara Landis, president of Bell Rock Benchmarking. Tara and I went to business school together from 1998 to 2000, and this is my favorite part of my conversation with her. I hope you enjoy it.
It's important to have a goal. It is. But I think it's way more important to have a compass. And I think that when you know what your purpose is, like why are you really doing the things that you do, and you know what your values are, which are, these are the rules that I won't break, not the aspirational values. I wish I was hardworking. I do wish I was hardworking, but I'm not. So what's really important to you? And if you can figure that stuff out, then I think a lot of other things fall into place. I remember Erskine, who was our professor, saying, whatever you do coming out of here, that's going to change you forever.
Right.
And so whatever you choose, that will change you forever. And you might still go do those things, but you won't be the same person doing them. And I thought that was really, really, obviously, I thought it was good advice because I'm still thinking about it 20 years later.
The 4th most downloaded episode is actually the one that started this whole thing, this whole experiment. And it was the episode called So What Do I Do Now?, where I was trying to give some advice to young people as they were trying to navigate their careers in this uncertain time. And here's a bit of advice I offered in that episode. As you're engaging with people, be more focused on being interested in them and their ideas than focused on appearing interesting yourself. Particularly when we're desperate, we have this kind of mechanism that kicks in to talk about ourselves, to sell ourselves, to talk about the great thing we did here and the great project we did. Unfortunately, that turns people off. So the way to flip that around is, instead about trying to appear interesting yourself, be focused on being authentically curious and interested in them. Ask them a question about their career. Ask them about a challenging project they had. Ask them questions that are open-ended and thought-provoking. If you ask them an open-ended question that's thought-provoking and they have to pause and think about the answer, they're psychologically investing in the relationship with you. The 3rd most downloaded episode was my conversation with Cos Laporta in A Humble Start to Global Leadership. Cos was one of my early bosses, and he went on to become an EVP with Starbucks for 18 years. And in this episode, in this bit, he shares what he learned from Howard Schultz, the founder of Starbucks.
Biggest lesson I learned from Howard Schultz was in 2008 and 9, when the financial crisis hit in the U.S. and the economies were falling off a cliff, and Starbucks was almost falling with it, and people were losing their homes and people were losing their jobs. And it was a very, very tough time. I would say the biggest lesson that I learned from him when he came back as CEO was when you're going through challenging times, to accept the brutal reality of what's in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes too easy to go into denial, especially if you've had a long run of success.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes too easy for you and your teams to be in denial and just to think your problems are going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to wake up the next day and it's going to be like it was. Really put the brakes on the company and really ask us to accept the brutal reality of what was in front of us and be prepared to really climb a hard hill. And, even for myself, I was in a bit of denial in terms of, we had to shut down 600 stores.
Yeah.
And I think that with him coming back and just getting us to truly look at what's in front of us, the faster we accepted the brutal reality, the faster we got our teams focused on the right work, the faster our results came back. So I think that was the biggest learning for me.
The second most downloaded episode is my conversation with Dr. Fawad Akbari in the episode called The Servant Leader of Kabul. And this was his advice to leaders going forward.
We live in a completely different world now. More uncertainties and more questions than answers. Things are unpredictable in whatever sense you feel, whether that's in terms of business and economy, social life, and people's job and everything. So I think in all of that, when you think what is a leader's job, I don't think it is too different than like any regular responsibility that a leader has, is to have the alertness, the agility, to be able to scan the environment regularly and to adapt with it as things change, because this is the environment we live. So that agility and adaptability and so let me also borrow the terminology that you teach is growth mindset. Right, so the growth mindset and being able to have your antenna up all the time to get the signals and then reflect on it and learn from it and adapt to it quickly. The other thing I would say is that in these kind of environments, we know that there is more, the probability of failure is higher.
Right.
So leaders' job, I believe, is also to make sure that their team is ready, themselves and their teams are ready to accept failures, to understand failures and learn from them. I'm not sure what is the terminology for it, but an ability to be okay if things didn't go well, but not to just forget it, but to learn from it, to reflect on it, and consider it as a learning experience rather than a failure.
And the number one most downloaded episode of 2020 is called The Humbled Genius, where I had a conversation with my good friend and classmate from my MBA program, Neeraj Monga. And in this episode, he shared the journey he went through from an ambition that he had in India, the journey he made to Canada, and the humbling he went through as he discovered his purpose. You can also find Neeraj in a Netflix special called Bad Boy Billionaires, where this docuseries covered some research that he did as an investment analyst, where he covered some breaches of corporate governance.
And he said, the smartest people in the world go and work for McKinsey & Company. And I said, well, that's me. I thought too highly of myself. But I believed I wanted to be a consultant because that's what I was at the back of my mind. However, when I went into my role, I think I immediately found 2 or 3 weaknesses in the entire process of working as a consultant. One, it was a very relationship-oriented role. And as a new Canadian in a new country out of a new business school, suddenly being put in front of experienced executives who had been in their roles for 10 years, 15 years, or 20 years, it was challenging for me. The second thing I found that was challenging for me was, yes, you are a smart individual from a great business school, but it is too early for you to start advising business people who've already been in roles for 10 or 15 years. And so, no, it did not go the way I thought, and I did not enjoy my role at all. The only thing that matters is not how smart you are and now how much hard work you do, how well you get along with other people. Because everybody believes they are the smartest person in the room because everybody's worked hard, they're professionals, they've spent years doing what they're doing, and they have varied experiences. That is, I think, the most critical skill, which is undervalued in business school. It was a very humbling time. It was also a time for lots of introspection. As to what does success mean in life, and do you live your life for others or for yourself? So it felt great to be paid the big bucks and tell everybody where you work and to travel in an airplane and go and meet people. But then at the end of the day, in the evening, I would sit back and think, what exactly did I accomplish today and what did I do? And I wasn't getting a lot of concrete answers.
I had so many incredible guests in 2020, and I'm grateful to all of them for being so open and sharing their insights. I learned a lot this year from them. You know, the original reason I started this podcast was to share advice and insights to actually help people. And that very first episode was all about helping young people figure out their path going forward. And I'm very grateful that that episode was shared quite a bit and led to quite a following. And I received a message from one of those early listeners to that episode who continued to listen on. And I wanted to share that with you today and also offer my gratitude to all my listeners. I hope that a few things that you've picked up here will help you as you make your plans for the new year and figure out where you're going to invest your energies and on what talents you're going to focus on developing to become an even stronger professional. And here are Harjit Dhillon's 4 key takeaways from the Navigating Disruption podcast.
Throughout this podcast, I have learned a lot about relationship management, success, change, and personal development. I have 4 key takeaways. The first, it's not about how smart you are or what technical expertise you hold. It's all about how you manage your relationship with others. The second is that success is not a final destination, but can be measured throughout every process regardless of how big or small. The third, one thing you know for sure is that change is constant and it's inevitable, so being able to build those resiliency skills will ultimately determine whether you sink or swim. And fourth, volunteer work is just as important, or if not more important, than work experience for your personal growth and development.
Thanks again, Harjat. I wish all of you and your families all the best for 2021. We're going to get through this. Take care. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, or share it. I want to say thank you to one of my favorite bands, Late Night Conversations, for sharing their song Chaos with me and letting me use it in this episode. You can learn more about them on Instagram at LNC Connected. And here's more of their song Chaos to take you out.
Far behind my eyes, mediation, suffocation, it'll break me. Information in the skies. But when your eyes finally found mine, you were there, but I'm defined by the chaos in my mind. I believe what I perceive is a weave tearing at the seams, and I wonder what's behind. And my ears are bleeding, and the reason is in the logic of the season, taking the pleasing from my soul and leaving me